Okay, so this lesson is going to be very similar to last. Now we're just adding negatives into our expression. So our expression is x squared plus 2x minus 3x minus 6. So as you can see, last time we had no negatives. Now we do, so it's just going to look a little bit different. So let's get started. Okay, again, first step is just going to be separating it into two parts. You are always going to do this. But now that we have negatives, I don't want you to put a negative out here. Last time we had addition. We're just going to keep the addition, but that means the negative in front of our 3x stays attached to it, right? So technically all we're doing is adding a negative, which is the same in this case as just subtracting, okay? So this is what our two parts look like. Our next step is now to find the GCF. So we have our GCF of the first part, it's just going to be x. Our GCF, the second part, is actually going to be a -3. So the main point to focus on when you have negatives in your expression is when you're finding your GCF, make sure you pull that negative out if you have a negative on both terms. So see how we have a -3x and a -6 or -6? There's a negative attached to both terms. Since that's the case, our greatest common factor is a -3. It's not a +3 because then that's just going to leave negatives down the road in there that we don't really want. So -3 is our GCF. Now that we have that, let's go ahead and factor these two out of their parts and see what we get. So we get x times x plus 2, right, when you factor it out. Then we get a -3, so this is where that subtraction or that negative stays with the 3. And when you factor it out, you get x plus 2. I want to check this real quick. If you think it should be a negative, we'll kind of go through why it's not. So let's distribute it out to see what we get. A -3 times an x gives us our -3x we had. Our -3 times a +2 gives us our -6 that we had up here. If this was a -2, we would have -3 times a -2, which ends up as a positive, right? And up here we have a -6, so that's not the same thing. So make sure when negatives are being added in, you're just checking your signs because it can get a little tricky. But if you take it slow and go through each step and really think it through, you'll be fine. So we've been here before. We're just going to do the same thing. Notice how we have an x plus 2 and an x plus 2, so we're going to actually factor that out. And we get x plus 2, and we're left with our greatest common factor, which is x minus 3. Okay, and I'm color coordinating it for you so it's a little easier to see. So we know this is coming from our x minus 3, right? It's not just coming from somewhere random. And our x plus 2 is what I underlined in blue. So this is now our final factored form for this expression when we use the grouping method. Okay, we're going to do one more example with negatives. Okay, so in this one, we're going to have the expression of 2x squared plus 8x minus 3x minus 12. Okay, so it looks pretty similar to the last, just different numbers. First, let's break it into its two parts. We have 2x squared plus 8x plus, right, you're going to keep addition here, a -3x minus 12. So now we have our two parts. Let's find our GCF. GCF is going to be what? 2x. It's our greatest common factor for the first part. For the second part, -3. Again, there's a negative on both terms, so we're going to bring that negative out with the GCF. So we know our two greatest common factors. Let's go ahead and factor those out and see what we get. We get 2x multiplied by x plus 4, right? Multiply it, you get 2x squared. Multiply it, you get 8x, which is what we have above. Then we have our minus 3 from our second GCF. And when we multiply it, we get x plus 4. Again, this gives us a negative 3x, which we have above, and this multiply gives us our negative 12, which we have above. So now you have 2x plus 4s. And one thing I want you to notice, a good thing you can check every time you're doing the grouping method for factoring, if you end up here in this step and you have 2 of the same factors, you're good. You're on the right track. If you end up with 2 different right here, something went wrong. So go back up and check your math. And then that should help you that's one way to know if you're on the right track or not, okay? Is knowing if these 2 are the same. So, yeah, let's go ahead and combine that into 1, so we get x plus 4 multiplied by our GCFs together, which is 2x minus 3. So this is our final factored product of our expression above. We have x plus 4 times 2x minus 3.